Anyone who watches the Minions and Despicable Me movies knows that it is absolutely impossible not to find every single moment involving the Minions, as well as Gru's daughters and son, incredibly cute. But have you ever noticed the absurd amount of deaths that have actually happened in the franchise while we were just laughing our heads off?
Poor man.
Evil Wizard. To kick things off, let's talk about one of the most recent and shocking ones of them all, the death of the Minions' Master Sorcerer. If you watched Minions and Monsters, you will remember that right at the beginning of the animation, the tour guide tells stories about the former bosses of the little yellow beings, and we are taken back to a distant past where the Minions serve a malevolent sorcerer. The wizard possesses a book of arcane spells that can summon evil interdimensional creatures that possess deadly superpowers. Even after asking his yellow servants not to touch it, Henry and James end up summoning a dark energy bunny that shoots deadly laser beams out of its eyes. As soon as the sorcerer walks in and is complaining to the little yellow creatures, he gets hit by one of the beams, which immediately disintegrates him, turning him into dust right on the spot. Even though he was evil, I think this was one of the most terrible deaths ever caused by the Minions. Pirate Captain. Almost as tragic as the sorcerer's death is the death of the pirate who led the Minions across the 7 seas. His bad luck was that Henry was fishing at the exact moment he and his servants were about to attack another ship. The outcome was as tragic as it was funny, since Henry's fishing hook snags right on the pirate's nose, making him fall into the ocean and immediately get devoured by a school of sharks that coincidentally was trailing right behind the ship at that very moment. It is probably because there are so many sharks hanging around pirate ships like that the villains of the 7 seas love making their prisoners walk the plank. But this time around, he didn't even have the time. Professor Flux. Now let's talk about a character whose appearance was almost so fast that many people don't even remember him, Professor Flux. He was a genius inventor who appeared in the first Minions movie, back in 2015. He showed his face at the chaotic supervillain convention, the famous Villain Con. In his big presentation, he revealed that he had invented a fantastic time machine, using this technology to bring dozens of future versions of himself to help him out at his booth. However, the plan went terribly wrong in the most absurd and hilarious way possible. The original professor, the youngest version present at the scene, ended up being accidentally hit and killed by a blow to the head from another Professor Flux. Because he passed away in the present, it created a bizarre time paradox that made all of his future copies wipe off the map instantaneously. So if we take it completely literally, it wasn't just one Professor Flux who died, but actually several of them. Gru's dad, Robert Gru. Gru's dad, known in the underworld as the legendary Bald Terror, had his great backstory revealed in the movie Despicable Me 3. He was one of the greatest supervillains of all time, being the one largely responsible for raising Dru, our protagonist's twin brother, right after getting divorced from Gru's mom. When Gru is taken by his twin brother to the secret hideout, we see a painting of the character, and it becomes clear from Dru's speech that he passed away quite some time ago.
Despite being a genius and having built a gigantic secret evil empire underneath the family mansion in Fredonia, his death was pretty ordinary. Robert Gru passed away from old age and natural causes, just before the events of the 3rd movie. He left his entire fortune, all his gadgets, and his hideout as an inheritance to the clumsy Dru. Margot's parents. Before Gru Jr. was born, Gru had 3 adopted daughters, the oldest of them being Margot. And the 3 girls, despite considering themselves sisters even before Gru adopted them, are not the daughters of the same father and mother. The identity of Margot's biological parents is one of the biggest and saddest mysteries in the entire franchise. They have never appeared on screen, but their absence is the proof that Margot is, unfortunately, an orphan. The exact cause of this death has never been officially revealed, leaving their fate completely wide open for fan theories. Either way, this loss ended up paving the way for Gru to become the best dad ever. Edith's parents. Since Edith, our adorable and rebellious little girl in the pink beanie, is the sister of Margot and Agnes, the story of her biological parents follows the exact same tragic and mysterious path. They never appeared in the franchise. Just like Margot's parents, the cause of death of Edith's parents was never explained by illumination. What we do know is that this sad and unknown tragedy is what forced our little ninja to live in Miss Hattie's orphanage. However, destiny conspired in her favor, and she finally found her true and forever home when she was adopted by our beloved Gru, Agnes's parents. Rounding out the trio of our adorable sisters, the fate of the youngest sibling, Agnes's biological parents, follows the same sad mystery. They passed away from unknown causes and left her at the orphanage. But here is where a simply fantastic theory comes in. Our best guess is that they lived on a beautiful farm. To enchant their daughter, they would tell magical stories and state with absolute certainty that unicorns actually existed in the wild. It would have been exactly this beautiful memory of the farm with her parents that created that gigantic passion and the hilarious obsession that little Agnes has for fluffy unicorns.
If you made it this far, do the following. Click the subscribe button. I think we deserve it.
Dracula. The legendary and spooky Count Dracula is part of the list of unlucky ex-bosses in the hilarious Minions movie from 2015. During the opening story that shows the little yellow creature's relentless search for the greatest supervillain of all time, it is heavily implied that the famous vampire had the terrible idea of hiring them. And it seems that for a while, it actually worked out. However, a tragic end awaited him on the day of his 357th birthday. The little yellow guy's intentions were actually good, to wake up and deliver a cake to their master. But at the moment of the big surprise, the minions made a fatal mistake and opened up the enormous castle curtains in broad daylight. The result was funny, yet tragic. The sun hit Dracula dead on, transforming the feared bloodsucker into a tiny little pile of ashes right on the spot. T-Rex. However, way before the incident with the Vampire King, the minions had already done something similar with another big boss. The feared Tyrannosaurus Rex was one of the very first bosses in the history of our adorable little yellow creatures. And he made his grandiose appearance in the funny opening of the Minions movie. Being the largest predator on Earth, he seemed like the perfect prehistoric master for the henchmen. However, as we already know, the Minions' help usually tends to be completely fatal. While they were tagging along with the dinosaur, when reaching for a banana, one of the yellow beings ended up accidentally pushing a giant rock right under the big guy's foot. The outcome? The T-Rex slipped down the mountain, lost his balance, and ended up falling straight down into the crater of a boiling volcano. We could definitely say that it was a fiery end for the Jurassic giant.
Yeti Boss. The Yeti Boss was yet another unfortunate leader on the Minions' long list. During their painful exile in the ice cave, the little yellow guys finally found a new master, a gigantic and feared, abominable snowman, the leader of a fierce tribe of that exact same species. Everything was going super well until the Minions decided to put on a musical performance to please the big guy. Pumped up by the singing, one of them hits an incredibly high note that destabilizes the stalagmite ceiling. The result was terrible. A gigantic block of ice plummeted down and crushed the Yeti leader's head right on the spot. It was exactly this accidental and hilarious death that made the other Yetis, who were absolutely furious, banish the Minions from the frozen continent forever. And also to our great joy, since that's how they ended up meeting Gru.
Caveman. The caveman was yet another one of the big bosses who got really unlucky after deciding to have the minions as his servants. Right after the end of the T-Rex, the little yellow guys adopted this Neanderthal brute as their newest master to guide and protect them in the ancient world. However, the worst happened during a not-so-friendly encounter with an enormous prehistoric bear. The master desperately needed a weapon to defend himself against the dangerous animal. But always wanting to help, a minion suggested that he swap out the heavy stone club for a completely harmless fly swatter. The caveman, who was also very far from being smart, smacked the beast with the fly swatter, which only served to enrage the gigantic bear, who devoured him without mercy right then and there. Napoleon Bonaparte. Anyone who reads the history books is absolutely certain that the French Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte died in exile on the island of Elba in Italy. However, in the reality of the minions, things went down a little bit differently. The greatest French leader of all time also had the terrible idea of bossing around the yellow henchmen, integrating the little lackeys right into his army. And it was during one of his famous military campaigns, when Napoleon was commanding the troops on the battlefield, posing majestically, that the minions' help generated a total disaster. When trying to fire a cannon to attack their master's enemies, the little creatures completely bungled it up. The equipment tilted downwards, and the heavy cannonball was fired right in the direction of Napoleon himself, who went flying through the air. This explosive accident was largely responsible for ending the emperor's reign once and for all, and it also caused the rest of the troops to try and catch the minions, which eventually led them into their bossless era in the ice cave. Unknown prisoner. After becoming the Queen of England, Scarlet Overkill throws the three minions, Bob, Kevin, and Stuart, into a dungeon located right beneath the royal castle in London, and she leaves the yellow beings in the care of Herb, her beloved husband. He even tries, but he just can't manage to put an end to the minions, since they are immortal. And after giving up, Herb decides to have some fun with the trio, and they take several pictures together. And in one of them, we can clearly see that Stuart is inside a cage, playing around with a human skeleton. This prisoner who turned into this skull didn't have the same luck as the minions, and ended up passing away in this dungeon, probably many years before everything that happened in the first movie. And the worst part of it all? Scarlet had absolutely nothing to do with it. Without a doubt, that is pretty bizarre.
If you want more videos like this, comment down below, #more. We're leaving 2 really cool videos for you to stay with us here on the channel. Click and have fun. Thanks!